Good evening, friends.
Good evening, all, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast downstairs. We're just three weirdos locked in a basement that love horror movie. We've got a lot to say on that. But first, we're going to go around the table and introduce ourselves. The podcast which you are about to see is the account of the tragedy which befell a group of three dudes. It is all more tragic in that they were all podcasters. But they had not lived very long lives. They could not have expected, nor would they have wished to have seen as much as of the mad and macabre as they had for that day.
Just as clumsy then just as clumsy now as it was then.
For them, an idyllic autumn afternoon talk became a nightmare. The events of that day were led to the discovery of one of the most bizarre crimes in the annals of human and American history. And I'm Glenn.
Yeah.
Man, you really hooked me with that one. I just gotta say, I'm bludgeoned by all the references that you can put into this. And honestly, if you were to just grab me as I ran out and just pull me back in, I'd let you.
Just a bear hug, you know?
Just a bear hug from behind between pals and a little smooch. I'm Claudio.
And I am Joe, a man who enjoys the finer things in life. You know, a little barbecue, a little cattle driving, you know, just some good old-fashioned American down-home, fun, I guess is how you'd put it, right?
I did notice that you have an increasingly large amount of hammers.
I really like feathers and human hair as like a design choice. Mm-hmm. Just to have lying around.
I have gotten into sewing recently, yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Have you?
Oh, you have really?
Yeah.
That's what kind of material?
Natural stuff, you
Natural,
know?
yeah. You want to keep
Very
it
resourceful. I love
leathers,
that.
you know, mostly.
You are a very resourceful man.
Yes, I am.
Very formal, too. Like,
Very formal.
At face value, no less.
Yeah, face value, yes.
Folks, if you haven't yet guessed,
we're talking about Alien again. No,
well, actually, not to give anything away, but they're not part of the conversation.
That's hilarious.
That is funny. That's right. We are talking about the wonderful Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And yes, this is my 50th anniversary limited edition skateboard.
Very nice, very nice.
We are fans of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. The original, of course, is a behemoth, a titan of classic slasher fiction.
Titan is exactly what I'd say.
The franchise itself, a little less prestigious on the whole. The original's been diluted, I think, by more recent sequels. However, there are a lot of fun gems in between. But what makes this episode more notable than others is that it is going to be the first in a semi-regular series that we may or may not be doing consecutively. But we thought it'd be a fun idea to start a sort of loose series in which we could look at classic slashers. You know, your Texas Chainsaws, your Halloweens, your Nightmares, your etc. And then we would specifically be looking at the sort of infamous 2000s era remakes, many of which were
so good.
In part produced by a studio called Platinum Dunes. They were just in the business in the 2000s of really trying to remake our classic slashers, and so like nobody's approval. Like,
It was low-hanging fruit. They had to grab something from somewhere.
It
you know
was,
what?
what
Blood
do the kids
always
like?
pays.
Rehash it.
Yeah,
Throw it out there.
Blood pays.
We talk often on this pod about the 2000s being a sort of sallow period of sort of
Creativity and
a lack
of
Media in general, really.
Just I always attributed it to America being in a very like post 9/11 panic of not knowing what our identity was, or we were feeling very insecure, like in a zeitgeisty kind of way.
Yeah.
And I always like feel as though that helped produce like bad art in the mainstream while like good underground stuff, but it made for really interesting contrasts and contradictions, especially when you're looking at these remakes and their more beloved originals. And so it just felt like a natural thing to kind of investigate on our end.
Yeah, especially because it's like it is one of those things that it was very much a thing that we grew up with, and it is very like near and dear to our heart. That it's like often like we were probably aware of the remake before we were aware of the original, or we were aware of it and we may have seen the remake before seeing the original.
For sure. And we talk about a lot of movies here, but I feel like and we're gonna keep talking about them.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's also really nice
Till
to
wheels fall off, baby. Till my face falls off.
Until we can break out of the basement.
Yeah.
But it's also really nice to just like hone in on like specific like where they were, what their like remake was, the time that they came out, the factors that made it what it was, for better or worse.
Yeah. Which typically was the latter.
We're talking about mid-2000s, probably for the worst.
Yeah, but like we'll get to that though.
Well, so not to give too much away, but just because of how my brain works, and hopefully, probably some of your guys's as well. We are going to start with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as already mentioned. This makes sense for us because chronologically, historically, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, came out in 1974. That pretty much predates all other classic slashers, except for Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho from 1961.
Because this was also very heavily inspired by the making of, at least. It was something altogether different that nobody had ever seen. Studios did not want to pick this up. They couldn't pitch the title. They couldn't pitch a lot of it, and a lot of places refused to show it. It got banned several times over in different countries. And Tobe Hooper did a lot to try to get this movie actually finished. It's actually quite impressive how far they were willing to go for that.
This movie was technically considered like an indie film.
Yes, it was.
Because of, I mean, was it production value, and like you said, very hard to get someone to like lock into it and be like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. I will say, just like before we get any like deeper into the specifics of Texas Chainsaw, our idea with this like loose series is, as mentioned, like looking at classic slashers and then looking specifically at their 2000s remakes. Okay, so we're not necessarily going to like the next sequel. We're not necessarily
the 2022 one that
right, or even more recent ones. Or we're not looking at like the entirety of this franchise from the original all the way through all the other entries, as we've done with like a lot of other franchises. We're really just looking at, for the most part, the original
74
and the 2000s remake of whatever, of whichever that we're actually looking at. So others that we will be tackling in the future, after Texas Chainsaw, I think, not necessarily in this order, but I definitely think we are trying to hit like the sort of mascots of slasher horror, right? Not just Leatherface, but Michael Myers in Halloween, Jason Voorhees for Friday the 13th, Freddy Krueger in A Nightmare on Elm Street. Those seem to be like the core four, right? And then beyond that, there are other classic slashers that did get either remakes or reboots or something else around the 2000s.
Amityville.
So I was going to say, so the core four I mentioned fit very neatly into the structure, so I'm excited to get to those. Beyond that, you have another mascot, right? Ghostface of Scream. Thing is, Scream's original was 96. It didn't, it had 2000s sequels, but they weren't remakes. It doesn't really fit the same way with the other movies we mentioned. Evil Dead is something that we've been dying to get into, but it isn't the same in that it's not a pure slasher, and like it had sequels, but they avoided the 2000s entirely, God bless them, and now it has different sequels and remakes, so that doesn't really fit the same way either. We mentioned Psycho being the original, so I kind of want to like, give it its credit as like, an initial slasher in American cinema. But again, it missed the whole 2000s remake era. It had a sequel in 98, right? But it had other sequels before that. It also got a TV series, Bates Motel, as did Evil Dead with Ash vs. Evil Dead, as did Scream. with a short-lived MTV series.
Oh, yeah.
True.
So I thought it was very interesting that Scream, Evil Dead, and Psycho, while not totally fitting into this, has that sort of...
It still has that tie-in,
It's sort of parallel play, but they all had TV shows, which I just thought was like an interesting, as did Child's Play, which is another like sort of horror slasher mascot, in Chucky.
For sure.
But slightly different. Again, it came along later. The original was 88. It did have a sequel in 2004, but it was like one of many. It wasn't like a remake. It wasn't fitting into the same 2000s remake trend as
it
the
became its
Platinum
own
Dunes.
timeline continuation.
And it also had a sci-fi TV series.
It did.
A TV series on
Much
the Sci-Fi
more recent
Network.
than...
Oh my god, yeah, it did. Fuck,
So again,
forgot about that.
So we have our core four that fit very neatly, right? Then we have those four that are also like well known but don't really fit. And then we have things like what you mentioned, the
Amityville Horror.
Amityville Horror is something that definitely got a shitty 2000s remake for being like not especially beloved, especially as the real life story got debunked.
Yeah.
But it nonetheless is like a very storied legacy within horror cinema in America.
Yeah.
So like it's something that we might get to at some point.
The Thing.
Well, I was going to say similarly would be things like Straw Dogs or Last House on the Left. Similar to
House.
Amityville in that they were, kind of original slasher hits in the 70s, but not quite slasher. And, Amityville got an 05 terrible 2000s remake with Ryan Reynolds, no less.
Shirtless Ryan Reynolds.
Straw
How
Dog-
can we forget?
I have things to say about not only, Ryan Reynolds' body, but also that of Melissa George. Like, they knew what they were doing a little bit in 2005
yeah,
with that
sex it up
production.
a little bit. Come on.
And we'll get to that with our 2003 discussion of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Jessica Biel. But, again, just kind of wanted to, illustrate what else is on our minds for this series.
Yeah.
So... Just quickly going through, you said, Amityville, I mentioned Last House on the Left, Straw Dogs. Also, The Hills Have Eyes. This was another...
how did I forget about that one?
77, so like kind of classic 70s cinema, like weird horror slasher proto, early days thing that got a shitty 2000s
That was
remake.
a 2006, yeah.
06, very good.
I really wouldn't call that one too shitty though.
I
that
haven't
one was
seen it,
actually.
so I don't know if it is
No, that one
crappy
was
or
actually.
whatever.
That
Okay.
one was actually pretty wild.
Again, I'm just I made note of it because it was a 2000s remake
Yeah, absolutely,
of a 70s classic. The only other things
I
that
actually
would,
went to theaters to see the remake of Straw Dogs. Actually,
I'm so curious about that for...
it's weird.
Yeah, and I know it gets into weird stuff that is not easy to watch, but I'm a completionist. And then the only other big things that we might tackle with the series, or just in the future, would be two other big horror behemoth franchises, but not exactly slashers and not getting the same type of 2000s remake treatment, but very similar, are The Omen and The Exorcist.
Yes.
The Exorcist is the
Exorcist
only one of
2000?
these that predates Texas Chainsaw because that came out in 73.
Yes.
All right, so that is just, again, the things
And
that
that
we
was
might...
more of a haunting possession story, demonic
Not
sort
a
of thing.
slasher.
It's not a slasher.
horror huge thing, but not
Yes.
not a again, not a monster chasing youths with death.
Yes.
Still a little bit different. Although, a monster going after a young person. So again, it's
Can be perceived, yes.
but regardless, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. So that is something that, we might have to look forward to in the future. But for today, we are purely focusing...
For your Thanksgiving era
Yeah.
viewing, why not a better thing to talk about than cannibalism and barbecue, baby?
Gather the family around the dinner table
And eat together like a goddamn family.
to consume meat,
Yeah.
the dead flesh of those that came before us. Let's honor their sacrifices by giving them the most humane death, right? The good one, where we bash their heads in with a hammer. And very, very suddenly pull people into a narrative, a universe, a story in which they do not feel safe. They are taken out of their comfort zones. And the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 1974, for as trashy as all of its sequels would, for the most part be and earn a reputation of, the original, as grimy as it is, as scuzzy and visceral and indie and sweaty,
Fuck, was it a beautiful movie?
as sweaty and dirty as and dusty as it is, gorgeous.
Yeah,
There's
that
so-
color grading.
Not only gorgeous, smart,
Yes.
insightful, humanistic,
Weird
Iconic.
cinematography. Yeah.
weirdly inclusive for 1974. So I'm kind of jumping off. If anyone wants
Yeah.
to take over.
I just was talking about all the wonderful things. I'm a picturesque person, obviously. So there's just so many iconic scenes. not to be like, back in the Tumblr days, but like it was one of the era of like, you see like the like screen caps or like the like
You see like the horror gifs and stuff.
yeah, the horror gifs and like the medley of them, and you could find a million of them off Texas Chainsaw because there's so many.
Oh my god! Yeah.
Even if it's just a still, the scene is just beautiful. Even if it's just like,
and some of the most famous ones from
her
that
just
era,
sitting at the end.
Yeah.
Her laughing like.
Okay, wait. Before we just start naming all the things that we enjoy, right? Maybe we can give this a little bit more structure. Right? So, no. I only mean so that just because I know we could just like list the things we enjoy for like an hour.
I'll just say it's very iconic in its structure and
Absolutely.
picturesque ideology.
Well, I didn't want to cut you off, but I was going to say like maybe we can establish here at the top that we will, not be going through the entire franchise, right? We are going to discuss the original for a bit, and then we will compare those aspects of the original that we're discussing with those of the 2000s remake. We're sticking with, for this franchise, the 2003 remake. Now, I specify that because, again, this studio, Platinum Dunes, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, not only made the 2003 remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but then its prequel that was done in 2006. So this franchise
Chainsaw Beginning
not only got one bad 2000s remake, but like
correct.
essentially two. Okay.
Yeah.
But we will not really be talking too much about the beginning.
Yeah.
Although I would like to touch on.
We'll hit on some of it, but we'll stick. We're going to be sticking mainly to these two,
so to speak.
Yeah.
And we want to, like, of course, give flowers to Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey. But, like, we're not going to talk so much about the sequels so much as just the original and then the 2000 remake and then maybe a little bit around those two major things. So, to continue forward, then, we're going to, like, focus on Texas Chainsaw, the original. Before we just start, how did you first come into this franchise? Did you hit the original first? Did you find a sequel first?
So, much like most of the movies that I see pictures, I see clips of it, and that pulls me in. So much like how we talked previously, 2003 was my first instance of Texas Chainsaw. Then I went backwards. But like...
Totally fair.
But I saw pieces of 74 first. And because I was a scaredy cat then, I was like, I don't like it. It genuinely.
Oh yeah, you see
fear.
moments of that movie out of context, and it's just that is terrifying.
Yeah, but like it was something
it's
that
terrifying in context, but
and it's like we've said it before, like we give it its flower. It's beautifully, it's disgusting, but it's beautifully done. And so like I'm happy that I went back and completed the.
I feel like when I was kind of growing up. So, like, around 2003 and, like, the 90s, I feel like gatekeeping was very much, like, at the forefront of, like, all of my friends' older brothers. Like, they wanted to make sure they were gatekeeping hard for their fandoms and franchises. And, like, I guess that was, like, how they showed their pride or whatever. And, like, nowadays we're kind of like, ew, gatekeeping. Like, why would you ever keep the young ones from like enjoying the thing that you enjoy, right?
And like my love language has always been sharing the things that I'm so passionate about.
I feel like that's much more acceptable than it was when I was kind of like growing up, coming up, and like I came up with such a attitude or like connotation of like, oh, if you only know the remake, oh, then you're not a real fan. But I feel like that has very thankfully kind of fallen away because you kind of can't afford that attitude anymore.
Yeah.
Like we're too far into the future
to
not have to like navigate the remakes and use that as the way in or whatever.
At this point, it's
Absolutely.
like, oh, you saw it? Oh, you gotta see this. It's so good. Like,
oh, if you like that, you'll love this type of thing. Yeah.
And like, I think I also found the 2003 remake before getting into any of the originals or like the better sequels, and it was because like just our age. Like 2003, I was like about 17. That was what was getting advertised. It was part of a trend as we were, as we're kind of establishing. And the thing for me was like, I saw the 2000 or even just pieces of the 2000s remake, and I was like, this looks so stupid. This looks like so obviously just, Michael Bay shoving Jessica Biel's body in my face and expecting me to just give them all the money for the tickets. And, like, I just resented it and was like, screw that. It looks trashy.
It didn't feel smart in any fashion.
It didn't feel redeeming anyway. Just like, oh, this is like a cash-in of a thing that I don't even have a familiarity with. And I'm like, offended on behalf of
the vets. Yeah.
And so I avoided not only the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I also avoided the original. I also avoided things like The Hills Have Eyes or anything that vaguely resembled that like French extremism, hostile vibe. Like I really did not like that as a kid. I was like, ooh, torture porn.
Yeah.
You know, like that turned me off. I was really not into it, and so I avoided Texas Chainsaw Massacre really until I like made myself sit down and watch the original just a couple weeks ago, and now I'm like all about it.
Yeah.
So that's my long
infectious.
history of like coming to it and coming back to it. But I know Glenn is a like huge, genuine, hardcore fan.
Yeah.
So
I came around to this, and this is what makes me feel like like an old man saying it this way too.
Say it with pride.
Yeah. I remember going to West Coast Video when I was younger.
You remember West Coast Video?
This was like pre-Blockbuster days, baby.
Oh really?
Yeah.
We had Blockbuster long before we had West Coast.
So
in
where I was, we had a West
Montana.
Coast Video that turned into a Blockbuster. Yeah, because they sold out. Well, I remember like my favorite thing, and like this is really where like my roots for horror kind of came from. Was like my favorite thing is that when we would go in there, it wouldn't be a 5-minute trip. Mm-hmm. Like we would go in, and we'd be perusing, especially once like Blockbuster started like renting video games and stuff. I got really excited about that as well, even if I didn't have game systems at the time. I was like, this is really cool. My favorite thing was to walk through the horror section because I liked the way that it made me feel. I was like, this is awful. Like I remember seeing like all of these covers and just being like, I hate that.
But good on you that even as like a young person, you were like, I know to follow what resonates with me. Like it is a challenge to even get folks when they're young to recognize what resonates with them. So the fact that you're even like, this makes me feel good, like my brain is sparking, like
I'm uncomfy about this, but it was also like as me being a scaredy cat at a younger age, like this was accessible for me because the pictures couldn't hurt me.
And this is as much as I'm going to tolerate
I'm not
myself.
in the movie yet. I'm not watching the movie. I'm not experiencing it. I can take it for the face value. And this is also like when covers actually had artwork on them.
This is where our love for black and red poster iconography.
Oh my god, yeah, 100%. That's really
Jason Goes to Hell lives. I remember.
Oh my god, that the silver mask with the flames and the worm and it's like I remember that.
Was it a worm, a snake?
I don't know.
Yeah,
it was like a.
So I remember looking at that one every time I went to Blockbuster.
It was a weird penis creature.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I was always like, "You're you a slug? No, what are you?"
But I remember seeing the cover of like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's like I distinctly remember it was the one where Leatherface is on the front, but it's the posterized version of him holding it up, and it's like it's the very classic one. I feel like it's
with the white background.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the Who Will Survive one, but it's that picture.
Fair.
We're looking at IMDb.
I'm looking at Letterboxd.
I'm looking at Shudder.
But I saw that and I was like, this is different.
So wait, then
because the bold typeface and the way it was like they weren't trying to sell me how gross the movie is. It was like they're letting the words work, and you know exactly what you're getting. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
But so then your first exposure was the original.
My first exposure was seeing that cover made me so curious, and I remember. I never rented it. I was not allowed to grab movies of that sort at that time. But I do remember a couple of years later, I'm over at my uncle's house, and he had a bunch of VHSs on the walls, and one of them was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I was like,
"Can we?
It's time.
Give me." Because at that point, I had already watched a couple of scary movies, so I was like, "Let's watch this." And he was like, it's bad, but it's not that bad. Like you can 100% watch this and not be like scarred. He was a little right.
I was about to say, yeah, not. So this is one of those, sort of classic originals that everyone like hypes up and references, deservedly so. But it's also one of those things that part of the narrative, and like I knew this before I ever like sat down with it as an adult. Like even as a kid, I understood from like what people would tell me about it. Like, oh, it's amazing. Oh, it's the most scary. But also, it's not actually that bloody.
Yeah.
And that's technically true, even though, like, what is
the blood that is shown...
The implication.
Yeah, the implication, awful. But the blood that is shown, the craziest thing about it is, it's technically not enough, but a lot of that blood that you see, a lot of that's real blood.
So much of I think people's reactions and the hype and everything, it's due to the sound design more than anything else. Even the very good cinematography that we're gonna.
The sound design is one of the coolest things ever because technically speaking, I think the way that they reference it in a lot of the things that you can look up is pretty much there is no music in it other than the copyright stuff. There's no score written. It's all sounds and tones that are made to sound what an animal would hear in a slaughterhouse.
Huh. And that was done on like intentionally? Which of course
And,
makes sense.
I
All
also-
the slaughterhouse motif stuff.
I also believe too that Toby Hooper worked on the sound design, and I believe he actually put out an album with noises and shit.
Did he really?
Yeah.
That's very forward thinking for 74.
Yeah,
I would
that's
think.
what. Well, I mean, that's what you got. Those fucking we're talking these post-Vietnam weed smoking, extreme thought having dudes.
Well, and
going,
also wanting to maybe what can I do to self-soothe?
Yeah.
What can I do to calm down before I even know the name PTSD?
Or doing the Tom Savini thing of sharing the horrors of war in a palatable way.
Yeah, before you
'Cause,
had the language of a
this was
therapist
very
or
much-
whatever to
it
help
was-
process, yeah.
Famously, this is very much like an Ed Gein style story, and
Yes.
it's
It's
we're
not-
gonna touch on this real quick, and I'm gonna get on my fucking soapbox
Well,
for a
it's
moment.
not a coincidence that Leatherface resembles a heavy-set, mangy-haired,
Yes.
not exactly gender bendy, but clearly playing with appearance and perception
Yeah.
and comfort and.
We're going to
whatever.
touch on this one real fucking quick. The Ed Gein series, if you see me, please don't talk to me about it. I did not like
Are you
it.
talking about the new Netflix?
The new
Netflix
Netflix
one.
Ryan Murphy abomination that he put out. Please stop yassifying real life criminals and all the terrible shit they did. It's not cute. Stop.
So did you see this?
No, but
I haven't
like
either.
It's
So
trash,
it's
and
just-
No,
the
but-
thing that pissed me off is that they
Glenn
pulled
said.
away from the story so much. And there were parts that they tried to redeem it later on and be like, look, that's not what it was about. But it very much felt like, oh, I think I'm trans. And they made a trans, someone who's supposed to be maybe questioning that, a bad person. And I don't fucking like that.
Listen, my true crime girlies, and they're the same. They're there's a way to respect the story. This is not that way. It never presented itself to do so. So
A lot of the stuff that they show in the
It's-
thing is unsubstantiated, or famously, Ed Gein was a very agreeable person and did not want to cause any rift or anything. So when he was questioned about certain things, he would just be like, "Do you want me to say yeah?" Yeah.
Okay, but to be
So-
clear, we're not defending Ed Gein.
No.
no,
Not in
absolutely.
any sense.
And again,
of the
I don't
term.
want to get too off topic.
No.
Yeah.
I'm
It's,
talking about Ed
I
Gein
think
on
so what that does is it detracts from the people that it was affecting, and I don't love that shit, and I don't love the way that they put out into the universe how certain groups of people should be treated or looked at in any facet or anything like that. That is the end of my rant. Fuck you, Ryan Murphy.
Well, and it is even more relevant to this specific discussion than you might think because, and again, we're mostly focusing on the original and the 03 remake, but we will touch on the very fun 1995/96 sequel, reboot, or Lega sequel, which is known as either, what was it, Texas
Next
Chainsaw Massacre:
Generation?
The Next Generation, or what was the original title? The Next?
Yeah, I think it was
Or the new?
Yeah,
Or
The
something?
return.
The Return? Jeez.
Yeah.
Doesn't even make sense grammatically.
it doesn't.
Regardless, that
coming back
sequel
around.
with Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey, which is just got a lot for us to kind of just make fun of and get into really quickly. But it has a lot of really interesting things that we'll have to talk about. One of which is that is the movie in which Leatherface is most explicitly sort of transcoded.
Yes.
In that he is in more than any other movie, wearing the skin of women, wearing some women's clothing, makeup, etc.
Yeah.
And it just felt a little bit more
It's-
emphasized in that movie than it did in any
emphasizes
other
the
version.
best way to put it, yes, because it's the hyped up version of what we got in the original.
And it's not necessarily explicit. And it's definitely not saying, oh, Leatherface is definitely a confused trans person. That's not what it's saying. But to me, I kind of interpreted it as a sort of lazy man's sort of poor version of what a lot of folks didn't love about Silence of the Lambs, which also featured a killer that was explicitly again not true trans individual, but someone that had otherwise convinced themselves that they were, because
Also
they couldn't
slightly
figure out what their
Ed Gein
actual
coded as well,
situation
yeah.
was, which I think does very much play with what they
Yeah.
maybe were going for in the Ed Gein series, but...
Oh, they reference it too, and it's tasteless.
Yeah.
And there's the thing, Ed Gein was a real, situation. Hannibal Lecter was not. And in Silence of the Lambs, they even go out of their way to be like, but they're not an actual trans person. Trans folk are, by and large, extremely non-violent and all this, that, the other. But with the Ed Gein thing, like, I haven't even seen it, and I totally... totally believe everything you're saying about it, because I just don't love Ryan Murphy, his track record. I just think he saw Charlie Hunnam and was like, I can't wait to do whatever I want with that guy, because whatever. And
He did the same thing that he does with all of his male actors, where it's like, I really just want to look at your naked ass on camera.
It feels like the thing that he always does
Yeah.
in bad faith, and so, I'm with you. But
Because and this is coming from a long line of recent history of yassifying serial killers, and it's like, can we stop? Can we stop?
and again, it's tough to kind of distinguish, because Hannibal, the Brian Fuller series, kind of very much yassifies Hannibal Lecter, but again, a
Fictional character.
And it is fun for true crime girlies, serial killer fans, to kind of see the not cool or good or positive aspects of a murderer, but just the sort of parallels.
It's about the psychology
symbolically
about it, yeah.
the things that we have in common when we are othered, or when we don't feel a part of the the group, or
what if that horrible thought that you had was a person,
or the Dexter of it all. Oh, what if I
Yes.
took my weird psychosis and weirdo and actually used it for good somehow, and that's
So-
interesting, fun,
And
whatever.
this is the interesting thing about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is that Toby
Right.
Hooper was really trying to just sort of play with the idea of Ed Gein. It wasn't supposed to be the Ed Gein story, Texas Chainsaw Massacre edition. No, it was like, well, okay, well, if that's the extent that a real person went to, what do we do if it was fictional?
Well, I
What
think
about how weird we can get fictionally?
so. I'm making sure I got the character's name right. Is the brother of the blonde woman in the original Chainsaw Massacre that happens to be a person in a wheelchair? His name's Franklin. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I was searching for.
Sally!
Because-
Sally!
To bring it back to the original Texas
He
Chainsaw
was so
Massacre,
annoying.
I think that what you're saying
That actor was great.
about not necessarily rooting for or endorsing a literal serial killer, but finding aspects of that sort of archetype that maybe resonate with regular folk in whatever ways. I think that was very interestingly and cleverly done with the character of Franklin.
Yes.
Specifically because for all of us that have of course seen the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and we started talking about the sound design, and we kind of just didn't even mention that iconic opening sounds of not only just the narrator of that particular setting of the title card.
Metal screech and slam.
Well, no, I was just saying the just his kind of gravelly, very serious, describing what happened on August 18th, 1973.
And then hard cut to a dead body in a graveyard.
But specifically, it being illuminated only by the flash of the photography, and we're only getting those flashes of these extremely gruesome bodies.
yeah.
But that iconic sound of or however you can better mimic it,
Yeah,
but
the drill metal screech noise.
which is just
yeah.
an exaggerated flash of a camera winding and that whine, but that has become so intrinsically associated with this franchise and scariness and all that, this, the other. But sound design and stuff aside, I think the next best thing is the very, I think, very obvious, I know I'm not the first person to discuss this, but the ableism satire of the original script as expressed in the character Franklin, who is bound into, to a wheelchair or whatever, but he's surrounded by hot, young, horny folks, right? His sister, her boyfriend, and then the other two who can't keep their hands off of each other, right? And it helps set the stage for that classic slasher thing of teens having sex, transgressing, and then therefore deserving their grisly ends by whatever slasher monster. But this kind of gave it a very distinctive spin in that these were not just young folk that deserve to die for being young and beautiful. No, he wasn't just like a cynical, like, oh, the youth have no chance kind of thrust to the story, which is something I think we all kind of appreciate about slashers, that it's like, the world, the system versus the young, right? But this was specifically, young, attractive, typically physically abled folks who are very, like, explicitly giving Franklin a hard time just for...
Because he is the other.
So he becomes...
They almost do refer to him as a burden so frequently throughout the thing. Should we have actually brought him? Why did you bring your brother along? Da 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 da. He can't even come down here anyway. Like, so all these little lines that they threw in that lay that seed of, like, there's resentment in them having Franklin within. And to be fair, the actor that did play Franklin, he famously was like, if I stop being Franklin, I am not this person.
So method acting.
So he's like, if I stop being him, like, I'm going to lose this. So he famously stayed in character and got on everyone's fucking nerves for the entire shoot.
Nobody's ever liked a method actor.
I'll say it
At least on set.
From my soapbox. No one method acts a good, or like no one method acts someone that's not, like, annoying or, like, it's stupid.
It seems like nobody method acts as a charismatic, charming, considerate individual.
No one method acts as a philanthropist. No one method acts as, like...
a charity worker.
Yeah, like, come on.
But so I
better.
love how it's like even with poor actors, even with like a bad production, the script was very like primarily concerned with like doing an ableism satire, which I just think is like really ahead of its time in 1974, especially for like what could have easily been just like a trashy slasher.
Which, like, if it was on his radar to begin with, it may have been something that he wrote in and was just like, it's a throwaway. We're gonna move past it, and then came back around and was like, wait a minute, there's something here. That's still fucking cool. You stumbled into something that's way ahead of what anybody else would have been doing at that time.
So when I was first watching this, again, like the movie opens after the title card, after the, that whole initial setup.
And then the ritualistically mutilated, gross abuse of a corpse in a graveyard.
Okay, yes. Oh, yeah, I do, I forgot about that, like, gorgeous, like, crazy shot of, hearing
the
on the
lighting
news,
in that and the fucking color was incredible.
Hearing on the news report, descriptions of grave robbers, right? And then you see this, like, crazy display, which, again, kind of influencing Brian Fuller for, like, all the macabre, death, like, displays.
Oh, yeah, like the death totems and stuff, yeah.
You get this shot of, like, skeletons clearly arranged on, like, a gravestone, and there's more, like, bird feathers and all this stuff that you would find more of in the house, like, once the movie gets going. But
yeah.
I do love that as, like, okay, setting the tone, like, establishing how crazy things are gonna get. But so, like, after those, like, a few initial setups, the first, like, sequence is like, okay, teens in the van, but before they pick up the hitchhiker, we see them trying to make a pit stop for Franklin to, relieve himself.
Yeah.
And he's having a hard time in
Dude's
the
gotta pee,
wheelchair.
man.
And he gets, like, a truck drives by and, like, just the force of the wind of the truck, like, knocks him down the hill or whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, to open with, oh, this guy's having a harder time because the world is not made for him. It's very purposeful, right? It's extremely intentional. To the point where, as an adult, I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, I think this is doing a thing, but I'm not convinced yet. And then they pick up the hitchhiker. And the hitchhiker is very much being, like, we're very much meant to notice that, like, oh, he's got this, like, very big birthmark on the side of his face. Oh, he's kind of gaunt and has, like, weird dirty hair, and it's, like, kind of stringy, and, like, oh, maybe
he doesn't appear to be taking care of himself.
Hasn't gone to the dentist maybe in a while, or whatever. He's very skinny, he's very gaunt, and, like, okay, but also, like, does he have... Am I just thinking of Matthew McConaughey, or did he have, like, a limp or something?
I want to say he had a slight limp, but I could be, like, because there's so many. I watched all of them so frequent, so close together.
And
that
again,
I'm
not trying to, like,
together.
rip on the actor. I'm, like, not trying to be disrespectful to him, but I think he knows he was cast at the time for looking very different and not looking like the other attractive young folk in the band.
Yes.
And so when
Just
that happened,
further portraying society's other.
and then, like, he starts getting weird when he's, like, self-harming and cutting himself and freaking everyone out in the band. So again, I'm saying all this to say that, like, oh, okay, first we get the guy in the wheelchair having a hard time. Then we get this, like, unusual-looking fella, like, self-harming. And I'm like, is this gonna be a movie that demonizes, like, differently abled mental health afflicted folks, or is it going to be like the more sympathetic kind of like approach? And I wasn't sure at first. I wasn't sure. And then even like halfway through, we then start hearing the other characters like just explicitly talking shit on Franklin. Not even just being like, "Come on, man, it'll be a good time."
To his face, or by
just
behind
straight
his
up being
back.
a dick to him, or
Yeah.
saying behind his back, "Why did we bring this person?" So like when you do that in the script, regardless of how the actors deliver the lines, it's like, oh, okay, we're clearly meant to be sympathizing with Franklin, or at least his circumstances. And again, all this would be like
And
whatever.
he's the harbinger of the whole thing too, because as soon as they dump off like the hitchhiker, he spends the whole next little bit of the trip being like,
Gee.
he could be following us, he could be doing this, and almost putting himself in his mindset. The blade that he was like harming himself with gets left behind, and there's still blood on it, and like
They're examining it.
he
They're
is
getting
fascinated by it, and then like he also gets fascinated by whatever the hitchhiker drew on the side of the van with
marks
the
it.
blood. He gets fascinated by that, and he's also just like, this is a bad idea. We gotta get going. Da 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 da. And they're like, nah, fuck you, Franklin. You don't know how to have fun. Bye.
And he was the only one that was going to help them survive. But on top of it, he even
Technically
says,
speaking, he didn't die until Sally tried to help him. Bam.
"No."
That's yeah.
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 No, and so
Wow.
that's all very
Wow.
intentional, right?
Yeah.
So once you start noticing that stuff, and like he also has a line where he's like, "Gee, that fellow sure was crazy, but my God, it sure does take something to do that to yourself, don't it?" And,
Don't
like,
you think?
That's admiration. Like
Yeah.
he's like,
Don't you
no,
think?
don't get me wrong, it's screwed up, but like, boy, what a different walk of life he must
If
have
I
had.
was in his shoes.
There's all that like empathy and stuff. So you suddenly are seeing Franklin not as like part of like, just the crew that gets killed by the weirdo, but as this sort of like middle ground character between like his healthy, dumb, rude friends and then this family of like cattle barbecue cannibalistic, Dracula folks. That was the other thing. The hitchhiker in the van mentions Dracula more than a few times.
Yes, he does.
And he also sucks the blood out of his own wound.
Oh yeah.
So there's like a
and then Grandpa
With the
sucks,
same thing.
Yeah, sucks Sally's blood.
So they're playing
because
with,
they're playing with the idea of blood and youth.
and but like the idea of Dracula being a totem figure, like, so again, we're not only harkening back to Psycho, we're also harkening back to fucking Bela Lugosi and shit. You know what I mean? Like this was a
Because
very
it was also that was pop culture at the time, and if these people are living like kind of off the grid, they're probably not watching current movies.
who were the reference points, or
Yeah.
like what dark weird stuff was available to the dark weirdos at that time.
Yes.
So
I
again,
fucking
this was
love you guys because I didn't even think that far into
All right,
it.
so
And
I
when
can,
I was
I
in
can
high
do you
school-
one better too. Okay,
Oh, boy.
so digging deep into this one. All right, so Bubba Sawyer, Leatherface himself.
Yeah.
well, to be fair, he was not named Bubba Sawyer.
They
at
did.
this
They
point.
said didn't they say
In the
like
first
get him,
one?
Bubba?
Okay, maybe.
I think they had shouted.
when
get
I was
him,
looking
Bubba
at
some
credit-
point,
when
yeah.
I was looking at
it
character
says
credits-
Leatherface. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see, and I was trying to remember, like, was Sawyer introduced first,
Yeah.
or was Hewitt? Hewitt is a different family name that they use for him.
Yes, Sawyer. It's the Sawyer family.
I think
is where they
Sawyer is
started
more.
that, yeah.
I think Hewitt is only the shitty Platinum Dunes ones. But again, I was trying to take note of like why Hewitt versus Sawyer, why
Yeah.
Sawyer versus nothing, why, and anyway.
So interesting thing about Bubba Sawyer. So Bubba Sawyer, obviously, he's wearing a face on his face.
Yes.
You mean Leatherface by Bubba.
Yes. Leatherface throughout the movie changes his face 3 times. He has a different face for different occasions. Right? So he has the opening one, which is the worker. That is like him being the slaughterhouse technician, essentially. This is his man's man face. And then he has his homekeeper face, which is like, it's a woman's face, but
he
it's like it's
grandma?
slightly more plain and it's more grandma-esque, yes.
Yeah.
And then at the very
Doesn't he
end,
change a
for
wig for
dinner...
that one as well?
Yeah, well, for the dinner scene at the very end, that is the pretty woman. And that is the one where it's like she has makeup on and stuff like that. The idea is that when you're looking at the house, it is a house full of men.
It is, yeah.
And at one point within the house, while Sally is exploring, I think it's when she was trying to run and hide, she comes across the mummified, desiccated corpse of an old woman
Yes.
upstairs. This is Bubba trying to fill the role of an absent
of the
woman of the
matriarch.
house.
Not because he feels he is a woman, but because he is just like playing the roles of various family members.
And famously, it's like Bubba is supposed to be a like learning disabled person. That it's like, okay, yeah, he just knows that this is how the house works. There has to
He
be a
knows the
lady in
nuclear
the house.
family structure.
Yes.
Oh
and he's
my
trying to replicate it
God.
throughout.
But again, this is clearly not meant to be like, oh, all, folks with learning disabilities are clearly homicidal monsters. It's
No.
like, no.
Absolutely not.
But when you don't support folks that need support, bad things can happen. Which is not to say that like they will rise
will
up and,
go down.
They will rise up and murder us. Like that's not what we're saying. But it stands to follow that like when you don't take care of those that need to be taken care of, your society is not going to like thrive and benefit. Yeah,
Yes.
that's all. I think.
And it's also supposed to like lean into the concept too of like an inbred family of some sort. That it's like the disabilities go more and more as time goes on. And it harkens back to the Sawney Bean story from Ireland, which was like a cave full of cannibals. Very interesting thing. Sawney Bean is a family that lived in a cave in Ireland, and they were cannibals, and they did not access the outside world at all. So there's quite a bit of inbreeding there, and that's kind of sort of like it touched on the Ed Gein stuff, but it also touched on the Sawney Bean stuff as well. So it's like Tobe Hooper really was pulling from all fucking places, and I feel like that's God damn, what are you doing, man?
Well, and isn't that a little bit of, and again, I haven't seen these, but like, isn't that a part of what like The Hills Have Eyes kind of play on, like the idea of like a nightmare hillbilly family?
Yes.
And that's something that we see touched
and then
on in, like,
we touch wrong turn, and it's like it gets done so many times over.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like this is a premise that gets reused and revisited. So yeah,
and it's also one of the determinations of like why people make these preconceived notions about others, shown in Tucker and Dale.
Yeah, there you go.
They're like, there's the scary woods people. It's like, nah, they're normal ass fucking people, dude. Like, chill the fuck out.
Yeah, just making assumptions. That's why you deserve to get killed.
Yeah, I did not expect to be talking about Tucker and Dale tonight.
But again,
in your mind, you were like,
I love Tucker and Dale.
But again, this is why like we do what we're doing. Like this is why it's so awesome and exciting, because like these connections are here, and these conversations between like artists and directors and writers and actors are happening even if they aren't aware of it. Just because we're aware that's happening. You know what I'm saying? So like we are facilitating, and critics help facilitate, and fans help facilitate these conversations among creators that they don't even know that they're having, but they are just by putting it out in the universe and we watching it.
It's one of my favorite things watching these original movies again with like people that haven't seen it, or talking about it with people who haven't seen it, because they're like, oh god, it's so tropey. It's like, bitch, no, you don't understand. This is where the trope came from. This is it. This is the starting point of this.
But so that's why
it's like, I've seen Wrong Turn do this before. It's like there wouldn't be no Wrong Turn.
No, go back. That's why
there shouldn't have been a Wrong Turn. Oh my god.
That's why I thought
7 movies? Shut up.
That's why I thought it was very like clear that this was not an accidental ableism story. This was a very intentional, like aspirational script that wanted to make statements about like society and what happens when you're not looking out for folks, and how Franklin is, like I said, like sort of the Venn diagram. He's like that middle ground of like, oh, the normies who are like morally corrupt, and then like, the, for lack of a better word, like the freaks, or like the the others that are also morally corrupt, but for different reasons, right? Because one got spoiled and one got ignored. And Franklin is kind of like, it could go either way. And it's the kind of, well, what happens to Franklin?
Don't you find it kind of interesting, too, that like Franklin is wheelchair bound, he's of a certain age, and it's 1974? Doesn't it almost seem like he could have been like injured in some sort of, I don't know, war that could have been going on previously? Because Tobe Hooper was not quiet about saying that there is some kind of Vietnam allegory here.
Oh, yeah. Well,
like the evils that men do type thing.
Okay, well, so let's be clear and explicit. Like, are you, like...
Yes.
Say what you're saying.
So, so Tobe Hooper has said a couple of times, and there's references to it throughout the rest of, like, the other Texas Chainsaw movies. Predominantly in 2, there is the grandpa character, which is just a fucking puppet corpse that they carry around. And that's grandpa, and that's supposed to be he was a Vietnam vet. So, like, the idea being laid out that, like, Franklin's always wearing green. Franklin is in a wheelchair. He is of a certain age, in his 20s to 30s-ish. It's like there is a good possibility that
he was a vet.
Franklin was a vet. Possibly even it's laid out as posed that one of the Sawyers was also a vet at some point. So it's like the idea of bringing back baggage with you. And that it's like the idea of like seeing the world and what's going on. Because I guess at the time it would have been Nixon would have been president while they were filming. That's right. So it's like that was a fucked up world that they were living in. So the idea of
Johnson maybe at that time,
maybe, and it's like the evil that men do at that time, and it's like it's an interesting place to have to pull from.
I thought that was like a kind of like established not criticism, but like perspective of just a lot of 70s American cinema. In that it was
absolutely.
It was getting dark and weird and countercultural and interesting and cool, but very specifically because we were all reacting to
also indie movies as a whole.
Everything gets exciting in art when things are going terrible in in mainstream, because we have to process and exercise our weird demons, and hey, that's where art comes from.
Which was I'll just pin it now that I believe that comes back up in the
03?
03. It was either 03 or 06 that it comes back up. No, it was the 06. It was beginning.
Well, and both of which are happening in the shadow of our the American invasion of Iraq.
Yeah.
So again, it's
because I believe in
Vietnam in the 70s. We got Middle East in the 2000s. History's repeating itself.
Yeah,
it's a cycle.
In the 06 one beginning, Arlie Ernie, I think his name is. He was the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket. He plays one of
He's the sheriff in 03 as well, right?
Yes.
Mr. Eyebrows.
Yes. So there's the one character that has his dog tags, and he was like, "Oh, you served," and then the other brother doesn't have.
Is this in 06 you're saying?
Yeah, in 06.
Okay.
The one, Matt Bomer has his dog tags. His brother doesn't have dog tags, and he's like, "Well, why don't you have dog tags?" And he's like, "You didn't fucking serve." And it's like this whole thing about, well, why didn't you go to the draft? And it's like, because his character had served. And it was they love kind of just bringing up this Vietnam motif throughout the entirety of this, which is interesting.
I think these movies are often playing on liberal Northerners' fear of a Southern, again, I'm saying this sarcastically, ironically, it's the Northern liberals' fear of a rural Southern nightmare family, but it's meant to be tongue in cheek, and it's meant to be, I think, from the movies perspective or certain fans perspective, it's meant to be ironic because all you quote unquote civilized northerner carpetbagger types, you always think the worst of us, even though you shouldn't. And I can appreciate that attitude, but so often I've seen so many fans of these types of movies use the mask of the Sawyers or whoever as an excuse to be yeah, so screw all you civilized Northerners and all your inclusive practices like affirmative action. And it's whoa, no, that's not what we're doing here.
Y'all 180 real
You twisted it all the way back around. That's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so I can appreciate the irony of oh, we shouldn't fear folks just for being different than us, but then so many of those people allegedly adopting that perspective are using it to then target folks that aren't like them.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that I always bumped up against, and that was part of my wanting to avoid this as a kid, because I only ever saw fans in a very specific mode.
And that very much rears its head in the remake, because it's then it takes it just kind of takes that and amplifies that thought process
without any of the nuance or intelligence of the original.
Yeah. They beat you over the head with it like a hammer.
And that's why in the original you can see all these things about is there ever a way to humanely kill the cattle, right? Are humans, just to be corralled those that we consume? And it's meant to be, I feel a very, like I said, satirical, ironic, takedown of the worst parts of humanity and the worst parts of society. And I feel the 2003 and probably the 2006 remakes just have none of that awareness.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a shame that they would attempt to remake a thing while not paying attention to any of what made it special in the first place.
I think that's just, I can't think of the actual word I'm trying to think of, but it's a casualty of the times, because we've talked about it all the time. The 2000s were just the remake central, and without the heart, without the core of the symbolism, the mythos of why this was, when this came out, why did it come out, the power that it had when it came out. And then in the 2000s, it was just we're just going to do this because, they want to see more of this. So let's just remake it and make it impossible for anyone to see because it's so dark.
Yeah. And it is so funny to me that it's like the 2003 was almost they wanted to rehash it not for passion but for cash grab.
Absolutely.
When famously the original was not very well funded at all, and they actually I think they lost money on this one. It did not get well reception in theaters.
So just
made a sequel.
Just for a fun fact, the budget for the original Texas Chainsaw was approximately $80,000 to $140,000.
What is that in today money, if you could?
I don't know, 2 halfpennies.
But whatever, okay.
But like,
hold on. 80 to 145 is a big window.
80,000 to 140,000 was the window that.
So 80 to 140, that's still a huge jump. That's like 8 to 14.
So
I'm just saying, that's a
let's
big-
call it like $120,000.
Okay.
Or
I guess.
yeah, but box office 30.9 million.
See, even against the average, like,
Yeah.
goddamn.
Yeah.
So then that's
profit.
after they were actually able to get the fucking movie out because they
Yeah.
could not. It was so hard. But famously, they could not. They didn't have enough money to actually finish filming it. They had to pull money from funder for like getting financed and stuff like that. And famously, the mob got involved in this.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so a lot of people that were involved with the movie really didn't get paid a whole hell of a lot because their money went to
right
the mob.
Oh my goodness.
Which was very funny. But that was 1974. And then the next one, it was a long wait to the next one because, again, they could not get funding for anything. They couldn't figure out what to do.
But it was a hit. Like,
and
audiences responded. So
Absolutely.
they did try again.
They tried, and they came back in 1986
So from 74 to 86, that's a pretty big gap.
with only one carryover in the cast.
It was just, I thought it was more.
Yeah, the only carryover in the cast, if I remember correctly, I don't know what the actor's name was, but it was the Chili Man is who it was. Tim Saito, he played the cook.
And from what I understand, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is it just 2, part 2? I forget.
So it is just 2. And it's supposed to take place literally maybe months after the other.
But I was going to say also starring Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper,
Pretty big
absolutely.
name, right? And was it well received, do you know?
I can't remember if it was
Like, I know
well received,
relatively now we're like, yes, this is probably
Production
the
and
only
box
good
office,
sequel.
yeah.
But at the time, I'm curious if people liked it or not. Because the thing is, it was just, 4 years later that we get the next sequel?
Yeah.
In 1990, and everyone hates that one. Nobody likes
Famously,
part 3.
the director hated that one. I was talking about this about Leatherface with a friend of mine, and I was like, I watched it a while ago. I remember hating it. It was dumb.
1990 Leatherface, not 2017 Leatherface,
Yes,
correct? Okay.
Yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 Leatherface. I was talking to a friend of mine, Jim, what's up? And he was like, I think Leatherface was my favorite. And I was like, wait, what?
I've still never seen
Of the originals?
these 2 sequels. I've never seen 2 and 3. I still need to do that.
So
but
2 is...
But I know 2 is like
2
the family.
leaned into black comedy, though. 2 was like, hey, we can get goofy with it. Because after Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there was a very, very, very small production movie made called, what was it called? Texas Chainsaw Manicure.
Like a spoof movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Starring who played the hitchhiker in that one? None other than a little actor named Bill Moseley. And when they could not get the original hitchhiker for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, they called up this kid that played the hitchhiker in Texas Chainsaw Manicure. And he went on to play Chop Top, and today we now know him as Otis of the Firefly family. Fucking Bill Moseley's been in everything.
What in tarnation?
Yeah.
Was Toby Hooper involved in part 2?
Yes.
I feel like
he
the answer
directed
is-
it. Yeah.
Oh, he did?
He directed and wrote it. Like it
there you go.
was his movie.
So that's what I was gonna say.
He
So like, I feel
really
like,
wanted to get the cast back. He couldn't get a lot of them.
So I feel like part 2 is like not only well regarded by fans, but like wasn't laughed at at the time of
They were
release.
left with.
Yes, because it was leaning,
It
as you
was
said, more
it
into
was
the
so
goofy.
camp.
But
yeah.
like but I mean, like it had like a lot of the original sort of like, I don't know. Well, I don't know, because I haven't seen it, so you could speak on that more so. But I was going to say just like, okay, 2 was all right, but then 3, nobody was...
Yeah.
Like, Hooper was not a part of that. Nobody enjoyed it. It was very much kind of cash grabby, right?
Famously, I saw in... it's actually in a documentary about just Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a whole. Famously, director Jeff Burr had said that he was like, I was like the 50th person on that call sheet. That I was not the person they had in mind to direct this at all. Everybody before me passed on this script because it was not good. Tobe Hooper was involved with it. Kim Henkel was also involved with it, but it was like,
Kim Henkel was the other...
Kim Henkel was the other half, yeah. It was Hooper and Henkel.
But so I'm trying to be clear. So this
Since
Henkel
the beginning, yeah.
person co-wrote the original script.
Yes.
And then later wrote and directed a different sequel. We'll get there in a second. But okay, so we got the original, we got 2, which is like a little bit better, a little bit different, but then 3 doesn't have any of the originals, and everyone kind of hates it.
Yeah, it did have. I will say it did have Ken Foray in it, which love Ken Foray. If you're a fan of the original Dawn of the Dead, Ken Foray was one of the police guys in that. Like he's a great actor. He's been in a handful of smaller budget horror movies, but he's one of those dudes. It's he's been around for forever with it. Shortly moving out of 90, we went 4 years later to Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, and this was a weird one.
So yeah, this is I believe 1995. Although sometimes it's credited as 96.
Yeah.
You'll
I think
probably
it was
most
one of those split release things where it was we don't know when it came out technically.
It also has some confusion around the title, right? It had an original title, which was, and we even said this earlier, but
Return of.
it was originally The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which does not make sense. If a massacre occurred, and then another massacre, if it was even a copycat, I don't think you would ever call it The Return of. It just, whatever.
It doesn't fit the...
It then gets a different title, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, which, I don't know if that predates Star Trek or not, but, anyway, this is a bananas movie. Because...
Oh, beginning to end. Oh, we got the performance of a lifetime out of Matthew McConaughey in this fucking movie.
So just make it make sense for folks that might not otherwise know. The 95 sequel, which is not even the one that we're going to spend the most time on, but it deserves to be acknowledged because, okay, it's 1995. It's been 5 years since the last sequel that nobody liked. They're trying to make it a legacy sequel, right? We're trying to make it the return, the new generation, hop on board. It's that type of vibe, right? And they decided to try to do this by giving you the sort of typical slasher that you would expect in the first half of the movie, in which it's prom-going teens arguing amongst themselves, trying to hook up and failing or whatever and fighting and this, that, the other. They get in a car and they just start driving.
Yeah. It's a very prom night.
Away from the prom.
Yeah. Yeah. We gotta go far.
On the way from leaving prom to who knows what, because again, no destination ever named.
No.
They're just angry and arguing and hopping in a car and driving. Okay. They somehow, in Texas, get away from this high school, get on the freeway, and then end up in the woods. Whatever. Again, typical teens, prom night, slasher, blah, blah, blah. Okay, they finally get into the scary woods. All right, it's weird, but they're there. And then they start running into weird folks in the woods, but it's a kind of well-dressed woman in what do you call it? A camper, mobile home?
Yeah, in an RV.
RV type.
Camper, yeah.
The type of thing that a construction site office would be holding a single file cabinet,
Yeah.
And a water cooler. Whatever. They find this crazy lady, then somehow a tow truck driver is encountering them again in the woods. It's all so weird. But this tow truck driver...
Boy, does that tow truck come back into play later, too.
Well, okay, wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me get there, because, this tow truck driver is Matthew McConaughey. One of these teens is young Renee Zellweger. And, so watching this, after the fact, as a True Detective fan, as a Bridget Jones, watcher, you're kind of oh, okay, I'm into this weird situation.
Yeah, you're pitching me a romance movie right now.
But, anyway.
How to Texas your chainsaw in 10 days.
Come to find, this tow truck driver, Matthew McConaughey, is the psycho brother of Leatherface. And I only
Vilmer.
bothered to say, yeah, his name's Vilmer. I only bothered to kind of like belabor any of this plot specifics because it's a weird sequel, because they hide Leatherface and they really like relegate him to the background.
Oh yeah, Vilmer is like the man in this movie. He is the villain.
Tried to make the Matthew McConaughey character like the new psycho to be afraid of, and it doesn't really work because the whole thing with Texas Chainsaw is that the villain is Leatherface, this Ed Gein looking, scary appearance, like
Wearing a
otherworldly,
dead
grotesque
person's face on his face.
wearing the skin of his victims, and then Matthew McConaughey still looks like Matthew McConaughey. They didn't ugly him up.
Yeah.
They didn't barely even...
He's got 5 o'clock shadow and slick back hair. That's all they did to him.
I give this movie a bit of credit.
It was pushback. It wasn't slick back.
I give this movie a bit of credit because they at least tried to make the killer, again, like part of that like other world. Like he did have a disability, which again, this is why the franchise like has to be careful, because it's so often making it look like, oh, folks with disabilities are the monsters, and it's like no. That's not what the message is, right? But again, they made Matthew McConaughey have like a disability in that like
He had like a leg brace or something?
he just had like a robot leg brace, the same as Bruce Wayne in Dark Knight Returns.
Or Rickety Cricket in that one episode when they were doing the dance-off.
And it's not even apparently a disability. It's just like a hydraulic, I can stomp hard leg brace mechanism thing.
Mm-hmm. It did make a good noise when he walked, too.
But here's the thing. This weird movie, this weird script, and I don't know, do we want to spoil the ending?
I mean, okay, so
or do we want to not spoil
Renee
the ending?
Zellweger ends up back at Vilmer's house, and like he is just torturing this woman and just being crazy. Her friends are dead. He sets one girl on fire.
And none of it's very fun to watch.
She gets her hands on a fucking shotgun at one point and points it at him, and he puts the fucking barrel in his mouth. Like he plays crazy. But then we get to the end, and you're just thinking this is just psychotic behavior in a house. Then we get to the fucking
I was gonna say, do we want to
do it?
Okay, no,
this movie's
then you
been
go
out
on.
since '94.
Okay,
No. You saw it most recently. You've started.
Because this is your franchise, and you love it.
This one's yours, man.
All right, well, so here's the thing. So I watched it very recently, and I noticed on Matthew McConaughey's tow truck, which they, to their credit, do a lot of work to make this tow truck a character in itself.
Yes.
Right? It has these like weird like hooks on the sides. It almost feels like a Batmobile. Like it's very
I'm pretty sure he drags somebody around with it.
and it's pretty cool for what it is, as far as like, Leatherface's chainsaw, Vilmer's tow truck. Like I see what they were trying to do, and like I kind of give that credit, and like they were putting lights behind it.
Texas Tow Truck Massacre.
Fog and smoke. They were doing a lot of cool silhouettes.
Yeah, the lighting was really weird throughout this entire movie. It was pretty cool.
But I appreciate the effort. Anyway, on this truck, I noticed early on, it said Illuminati.
Yeah.
I thought that was an odd detail, but a throwaway thing, because how could that possibly factor into a Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Lo and behold, you come to find out that not only is, the Sawyer family, the low down, othered hillbillies, they're not just disenfranchised, ignored, neglected folk. No. They are apparently the servants of an Illuminati secret conspiracy group that has been put on this earth seemingly for no other purpose other than to, quote, spread fear on behalf of, again, a mysterious Illuminati organization. But it turns out this mysterious Illuminati organization is not even earthbound or terrestrial.
That's right. It's fucking aliens.
It's aliens. And this is hinted at early in the script when the lady from the mobile home that I mentioned, who is actually like the girlfriend of Vilmer, the Matthew McConaughey character, she even says, like, in just kind of hyping up the psychopath nature of him, says to Renee Zellweger at some point, gee, I swear, he's not even human. I bet he's alien. And at the time, like, it stuck out like a sore thumb where I was like, is that meant to just be like a throwaway line? Or is that meant to be like foreshadowing? Guys, it was foreshadowing. And you find all this out.
That's the sign of good writing, when you're confused as hell about it.
You find all this out at the very end. It becomes, Chekhov's alien, because some random crop duster plane apparently, like, clips Matthew McConaughey in a crucial coincidence moment where he's about to, like, kill Renee Zellweger, our, like, final girl hero. And when he's clipped by the plane and knocked down and clearly killed, we come upon his body and see, like, a shiny purple blood puddle spilling forth from his head. And that's meant to be like the confirmation of this, like, oh, he's an alien. But it's like, is Leatherface an alien? Is the Leatherface, is that family of psychopaths aliens? Or are they Illuminati? Why are they spreading fear? We don't know.
Doesn't matter.
And apparently it doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with anything. But I freaked out when I was like, geez, who did this sequel? I bet it was nobody from the original.
Kim Henkel.
Written and directed by Kim Henkel, co-writer of the original. So I was just like, holy
There's a
cow.
point where smoking weed and doing too many psychedelics actually does inhibit storytelling.
Maybe, I guess. Anyway, wild sequel.
Yeah, rated
to come
R,
upon.
too, for demented mayhem and torture. Like, what? The demented mayhem?
But
What?
as crazy and demented as alien Illuminatis and you know, tow trucks in the woods and whatever else we want to say about this sequel, that was more fun and more rewarding and more enjoyable than anything to do with the 2003 Michael Bay produced Platinum Dunes remake.
Yeah.
Here we
So
go.
here's the fun thing.
So let's fully
Here's
dive
the
into
fun
that.
thing.
Yeah.
It goes full dark.
Yeah.
The sky in Texas goes dark. The chainsaw stops running until 2003.
Yeah, so from 95 to 03, we get nothing, because again, people were not happy about that 95, 94, whatever it is sequel.
Yeah, they weren't proud of that.
Fans did not appreciate the pivot away from Earthbound horror.
So here's where things get fun. All right, so they get a director signed on to this. The director, his name is Marcus Nispel. He's a German director. He's known for being second unit assistant director for National Treasure. He was the director of Pathfinder in 2007. He also directed the Friday the 13th remake in 2009.
Oh, he's a veteran of our new series. Oh, Marcus.
So, yeah, Marcus is gonna come back around in later episodes. This motherfucker. He also did the remake of Conan the Barbarian. But the cool
Well,
thing
after
that
Pathfinder.
the cool thing that we got as the tag on here is that Kim Henkel and Toby Hooper are both writers on this.
Were they,
I
though?
think they got writing credit
I think they just got
because it
story
was a
credit.
contractual obligation.
Because original characters, yeah. I don't
Yes.
think they had anything
It
on
was
actually.
written by Scott Koser.
Yeah.
Who, like, let me see if Scott has done anything else. Like, oh, okay, he was a producer on Haunting of Hill House. That's a cool credit. He was a writer for The Crazies. You know, that great fucking movie.
Oh, Jesus.
And
That was
also
another
a
one
writer
that
in the
I wrote.
2005 Amityville Horror. See, we're going to start tying in.
Pattern recognition is
Yeah.
a skill.
So Scott and Marcus are going to show up a lot because of this.
So we need to know who to blame.
It's the production company is who it is.
Who's the blame?
But we are given this 2003, what is it, 98-minute movie? It's an hour and 30.
Which is, you know, it's
Yeah,
quality,
I
not
think.
quantity.
Yeah.
Hour and a half.
Which is palatable. That's what we're looking for. We love a 90-minute movie. We try to keep the episodes at 90 minutes. Sometimes we talk too much. We just get excited about stuff. But then we're also going to tack on some big names, right? So we got, like, such people as Jessica Biel.
Who in 03 was a name.
Yeah, she was a name.
Not a name known for, like, Oscar contender, but a name with a brand that appealed to certain demographics.
Yes. Then we also had Jonathan Tucker.
I was to say,
So-
mostly 13-year-old boys that were muting Seventh Heaven.
Yeah.
But go on, I'm sorry.
Then we also had Jonathan Tucker, and
Who
Jonathan
I
Tucker is
love.
he's a cool guy. He's
an
one of those
actor that
dudes
I
that
enjoy.
he's been in a ton of the fun stuff. Like he was in The Ruins, he was in The Virgin Suicides. Like these are cool movies that
He's also on an
99.
NBC crime drama series called The Black Donnellys about an Irish mob that I really enjoyed. He's also
Oh.
been a bit player on Hannibal.
Oh, that's cool.
He's in a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
he's in
I like
American
him.
Gods, Hannibal, like just perusing his stuff right now, and it goes deep. 6 Feet Under too.
Yeah.
Then-
Also, Eric Balfour, the other dude in this movie, in the 03 movie, the boyfriend of Jessica Biel,
Yes.
was also a major character on 6 Feet Under.
That's really cool. I was gonna say Mike Vogel is also in this too. Mike Vogel, who you might remember more specifically from Grind.
Ha! Sorry. Oh my
Mike
god.
Vogel played Eric Rivers in Grind. Yeah, we literally just watched that. That is so fucking funny. Oh yeah, and then we had Arlie Ermy show up, and Arlie Ermy, obviously, everybody knows him from Full Metal Jacket. They're trying their best to put together R. Lee Ermey.
You know him because he always sounds like this, and his eyebrows are out of control. He puts Peter Gallagher to shame.
He's got the craziest eyebrows I've ever seen in my entire fucking life. But like, you can tell that they're actively fucking trying with the people. They're like, we're gonna tack on some names that are.
Well, hold on though, because here's the thing. Jonathan Tucker, Eric Balfour, even R. Lee Ermey. These are all character actors. These are not like big names.
They're not big names.
Audiences.
But character actors can carry a movie, and we know this. Somebody like R. Lee Ermey, if you're going, oh, I've seen him in other stuff, basically playing the same character he did in Full Metal Jacket, but. So they got this cast. There is some trying with that. We have our big name to attach to it. We have our makeshift Scream Queen. And then we go in and we try to start telling.
I feel like you're already giving them too much credit. Like,
I'm trying to redeem
Paula Abdul here.
I'm trying to redeem a little bit of it. Then we go in and we Texas Chainsaw Massacre the entire story.
He said the name.
They change a handful of stuff with how like the family unit works. They change how the story kind of goes. The hitchhiker that they pick up is not the hitchhiker from the house. He's the hitchhiker. She is a victim, essentially.
I was gonna say, so I kind of already knew, right, from the premise of this like semi-series we're doing. We knew the 2000 remake would not be like great, right?
Yeah.
But I was really gonna give it a shot because here's the thing: the original surprised me. The original was like, oh, damn, smarter and better and more like crafty than I ever would give it credit for. So let me try to give credit to this new one. But I knew, and I'll tell you when I knew it was gonna be bad. It wasn't even at the beginning. Right, it wasn't even when they were being way too gross in the car and playing like terrible music and whatever, this, that, the other. It was when, and I even liked the hitchhiker, right? Because the hitchhiker was a little bit different. It wasn't like a dude like in the original. It wasn't just like someone self-harming.
And she harbinged the hard as fuck.
And so it was like, it was a woman. A conventionally attractive one, clearly disturbed, whereas like the hitchhiker in the original is like, trying to kind of terrorize the kids in the van. This woman that they pick up is not seemingly trying to be aggressive. She seems like very disturbed and genuinely like in need of help. And, she does commit some self-harm, even in a more extreme way, with even some creative camera angles going through the various holes she puts in her body.
Yeah, that was like, if there's anything to take away from this movie for me, it was that scene.
I was gonna say that was like the one part where I was like,
that scene was like, that is fucking creative filmmaking.
I mean, nothing crazy, but I was like, okay, this maybe has some moves. It's trying to honor the original by being a little different. Okay, I'm
and doing some weird shots and stuff like that. I could see Tobe Hooper, if he had the technology then, to pull a shot like that where it's like, I'm gonna pull the camera through this woman's head.
Again, that's a nice idea. I don't think it's like anything like too like, whoa, stop the presses. But like, I was like, okay, I'm rocking with you so far.
Fun fact: they shot that with a dental camera.
That would be.
Yeah, they had the props set up and they put the camera through, and it just like, that's why it has like, that's the only shot with a weird fisheye lens, is because it's like a fucking endoscopic camera.
Oh my god.
So
it's something that we saw in Hard Eyes. Last year or earlier this year.
We did.
Thanks, Josh Rubin.
But I'm saying all of this to say that like I was rocking with it, trying to give it credit, but I knew that this would be as bad as I suspected once Jonathan Tucker's character got out of the van and walked around. And I realized, Franklin is not here. There is no character that is going to serve as a kind of like halfway midpoint between the victims and aggressors.
No.
Like, we're not going to have
They're all pretty people.
Nuanced conversation about why these attractive folks are so stupid, if not for being, ableist assholes, then for at least doing the thing that they are intruding upon someone's home and demanding assistance. You know what I'm saying? And not respecting the local culture. Because that in itself could still be interesting, right? Okay, we're still doing like a foreign invader thing that could still relate to the whole Vietnam connection.
Yeah, which we get in the other one, but like it's non-existent in this one. So why should we fucking care?
But it wasn't there. Like, it's not there at all. And this remake.
And for you to try 3 years later, it's like, all right, well, you already missed the mark, dude. Like, it's gone. Sorry.
Like, we can't miss the mark twice.
Yeah. Like, do not get me wrong. This is a wet fucking movie. This is, if you like grisly fucking violence in a movie, they show it. And it's like, that is what the movie was just, that's what they were trying to do.
That's what the era of the 2000s was. It was gore, it was grit, it was shock value.
Without any thought.
Yeah. No thoughts. Like,
And don't get me wrong.
Yeah, just
I
wet.
do love the mindless, mayhem has its place, but like when
But
it
you
comes
need to contextualize it. You need to be like,
That.
hey, there's nothing going on here, so just like let loose and have fun. Cool. But don't present as if you have ideas
That part.
and then try to get away with not having them. Like
Yeah.
that's what will
no, just
make
if
me
you
angry.
own it up front.
Just know what
Yeah.
you are. Advertise accurately. Show up in good faith. Don't present as one thing and then try to pull a bait and
This
switch.
ain't your
or whatever.
grandpa's Texas chainsaw.
Yeah, like it's a wet fucking movie. Like it shows you the things that like the horrible part of your brain wants to see when watching the original, where it's like, oh no, I want to see Leatherface like tear someone open with a chainsaw, and
to their
so
credit,
okay, you get to see that.
You do get that. You do get the sound effects.
You get the face peeling.
So,
like,
like,
you get to see him make a mask.
So like they do check boxes.
Yeah.
But like it very clearly felt like checking boxes. It didn't feel like any of that came from things that needed to happen as a result of what the characters were choosing to do. It was more just like, nah, we think we know what audiences want, so at some point make sure that bop happens and this,
Yeah.
that, and da. But like none of it resulted from like genuine conflict or any of the things that are meant to drive narrative or make characters compelling.
No.
Like can
It
you
is
tell me any
simply
details
just-
about any of these people? No.
The Sawyers?
No, the victims.
Oh, they're hot.
Yeah, that's literally it. They're
They're
meant to be
beautiful,
attractive, and that's all.
angelic people that didn't deserve to get hurt, Joe. Oh,
But that's the thing. Like in all horror movies, slashers especially, like we know what the deal is. They are supposed to get hurt. Like
Yeah.
they deserve it. But we
Like-
need to know why, and we need to know like,
It's more than just wrong person at the wrong time.
Yeah.
There's
or no, because that in itself could be a threat. Like with the strangers, that whole thing is like, why are you doing this? Because you were home. And that's chilling in and of itself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But like we're meant to understand the nihilism of that choice. You know what I'm saying? When things just happen randomly, it doesn't feel like disturbing nihilism. It feels like sloppiness. And like in this 03 remake, it felt like sloppy, taken for granted.
No, absolutely.
In something like The Strangers in 08, I'm like,
It works.
ooh, this is intentional.
Yeah.
but
this
also
is purposeful. Yeah.
Strangers is. I mean, yeah, we have Requel, whatever. But
And now
Strangers.
it's found its own
But
terrible cycle of
exactly.
franchising. Yeah.
That Strangers, they set the tone for what that was.
Yeah.
With
Right,
something
they
like
properly
Texas
contextualized.
Chainsaw, where like it has it. Like
Whereas
I
the
mean,
remake was leaning on the strength of the original without even paying it like the proper lip service. It was more just like, hey, we got bone furniture, we got slaughterhouse
put a meat
references.
hook over there.
We got the dude on the meat hook.
We paid good money for that mask. Like the mask looks good. It's genuinely, it's very iconic.
Yes.
That's the thing. Like
I'll
this
give them
could've-
that. The look was they nailed the look. It was the updated version. It was what the 2000s wanted for a Leatherface, but none of the rest of the movie fucking pulled through it all.
If this was a 50-minute cut that wasn't even in a language I could understand, I would have appreciated it way better.
Yeah. So
You know what I mean?
Funny enough that this entire movie had to be cut. So much of this movie ended up on the editor's floor because it was far too graphic. And we got some graphic shit out of this fucking movie.
we did.
And there was stuff that was even still too graphic to be shown because they couldn't get release in a lot of places.
And to me, that just shows like that they were putting all the effort into the shock and just again none of the.
Or
thought.
if it was like they were putting all of that into special effects, and it's like that's one thing. Like, all right, there's plenty of movies where it's like, no, we leaned special effects over story all day.
But like again, if you're gonna do that, then like I don't know,
Contextualize it.
put on Faces of Death. Yeah, put on like a YouTube clip. Put on like whatever. Because again, you don't need narrative. You don't need character. You don't need any of that
Yeah.
cohesive connective tissue.
It's
but
just-
if you're gonna
it's upsetting.
say that you're gonna tell me or show me a movie, then I gotta see some characters. I gotta see some plot.
And
I
it's-
can't just be random unless
was
it's something
no-
like Final Destination
Yeah.
when that's built in.
Yeah, there was no carryover from the original with other than just the initial concept, like just the top tagline and the name. That's where we're going with it, which kind of hurts because it's like I do love the original so much that it's like, well, you guys kind of deviated so far from this. Like you could have had a cool angle if R. Lee Ermey was actually the sheriff. He wasn't just like posing as the sheriff. And it's like, okay, so now we're gonna like do a whole thing about like the police system.
Because that would have been an interesting take. but
Especially
instead-
at that
yeah.
time period in the South. It's like, okay, that's an interesting take on things. All right, whatever. No, we're not going to get that. That's far too fucking smart.
That would take too much work.
Yeah.
That we're not willing to put in.
And I love senseless violence in a movie like as much as the next person. It is just fun to watch it because I love fucking special effects. And I'll tell you what, there was a handful of like really good gags in this.
Yeah.
If it was phrased a little differently or handled a little differently, we'd probably be having a different conversation about this.
Or
but
it was just
it's
more
like,
cohesive, as
yeah.
opposed to like a series of things that happen to be in the same movie.
But I think like they saw a lot of their failings with that, like the production company that is. They saw a lot of their failings with that, and they were like, all right, we did all right. It's not loved by the audience, but we still own the rights to it, so let's run it back again.
So then that's what I was going to ask, like...
But this is when they take the moment to recontextualize, though.
Okay.
And like the 2006,
And making a prequel.
Yeah,
Dude,
the 2006 they did a prequel, and it was Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning.
And I was going to ask, I was like, well, okay, so if the 03 one didn't do well, like, why were they allowed?
Yeah.
Like, did they just have the rights and no one else could have touched it, and so they were working within a window? And so, okay,
Yeah,
I was just curious.
So yeah, the
'cause
production
it's like, okay.
it's the same production company that did both of them.
And you got
This
Jessica
one,
Biel in 03, and then who's in 06?
oh, we got Matt Bomer.
Well, but not as, like, the final girl, like,
No, not as the
TNA.
final girl,
I was going to
but-
say, like, Michael Bay. I think,
Jordana Brewster.
Yes.
We got Tyler Handley.
Okay,
we got,
wait. So I'm saying Jordana Brewster, who you might know from the Fast and Furious movies, again, like, no offense, Ms. Brewster, but like I'm not known for her acting, right? Yeah. But in 06, she, was seen as probably like a very conventionally attractive lady.
She's really pretty.
Just like Jessica Biel.
She's real pretty.
Just like in 2013, the final girl was Alexandra Daddario.
Yes, it was.
Who, again, like, I don't dislike her necessarily as an actress.
That was the 3D one?
Yes,
That was
in 2013.
Leatherface?
No, that was 2017.
No, okay, so that's Texas Chainsaw. That's
3D.
right. Yeah, 3D.
No Massacre.
Yeah. Do your thing, cuz.
Which I'm only bothering to mention 03, 06, and 13 and their leading ladies, not to denigrate those three actresses, but to
kind of show the trend of what we're
just
doing
to show what the
here.
Producers were going for, you know,
like there is like, but you're also like you're so far removing yourself from the source context or content, and it's. So, like I was saying, with the prequel, they tried to recontextualize a little bit, and it was like there was like that whole like this is pre-Vietnam, kids are getting ready to ship out, the draft is already happening, and that's what kind of kicks off the whole thing as to why this group specifically gets hunted.
Because I thought it was a big choice that in the 03 remake they did not set it in the 2000s; they kept it in the 70s.
Yes,
and that's why like I was very curious about what the beginning, the 06 beginning prequel would go to. Like, so okay, is it taking place in like the 50s or?
It takes
60s?
place. It's like we're in Vietnam. Like
So
kids
it's
are
gotta
getting
be
shipped.
60s.
Yeah, it's the 60s. So kids are getting shipped out and stuff. So, but like the idea too is that they touch on like what home life was for Bubba Hewitt. Isn't this? Are they still?
Well, so
Hewitt?
that's what I was gonna ask. I think in just these.
Sorry,
two,
now
it's the
he's not
Hewitts.
Bubba. He's Thomas now. It's Thomas Hewitt.
That's what I'm saying. He was Bubba Sawyer only, I think, in like 2 and 3.
Yeah. So he's Thomas Hewitt now.
But then they revert back to Sawyer with the next one.
They show like his his entire like upbringing and stuff like that of like being a special needs child that needs to be like watched, and they instead put him in a slaughterhouse and have him like kill animals, and like that carries over, and the idea of like serial killers abusing animals and stuff like that kind of carries over into this one. And there's a handful of like treating human like cattle, but also treating animals like just meat, and it's kind of a weird thing.
Which again was a very present theme in the original, but whereas that was very clear of like, ooh, these are the questions we're trying to ask about society. Was it as
This just kind of came across as like what's dark for being the sake of dark. And it's like, was this more gritty? Yes. Was it a little bit more narrative driven? Sure, maybe a little bit. I think arguably this one is better than the 2003 because the kills are a little bit more creative because the narrative is there. There's a scene at the very end of that movie where somebody thinks that they're getting away and they're driving in a car. It's the final shot of the scene, or final shot of the movie. Girl thinks she's getting away, she's driving the car away, and and then you see him like Thomas Hewitt sit up in the backseat, Leatherface, and he just goes and drives the chainsaw through her chest and kills her, and the car swerves, and the camera just pulls out, and you just see him get out of the car and just start walking down the street back to the house. And it's like, that's a cool shot. You guys are actually doing some cinematic shit now. But it's
But again,
like,
if that's the final shot, like, was it worth the 90 minutes that preceded it?
eh.
And that's the thing, like
You're looking at a solid like 5 out of 10, baby. Like it's all right.
Yeah. Well, so I'm of the opinion that like you can have the greatest final shot in all of cinema history, but if you didn't have a story before that,
Yeah. Well, it's like all this to say it's never going to touch what the original did because like the original final shot is one of those things that like that's burned into people's fucking minds.
Now,
of Sally freaking out covered in blood in the back of that fucking truck.
Now here we have arrived at the debate that I think drives so much of what I kind of want the series to be, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at an original and then we're looking at like the worst kind of 2000s remake, where do we fall on the big question of, and maybe this can kind of like bring us home and wrap things up a little bit or get us ready for it. Like, do you think that you can remake an original? And can you do it well? And should it be done? You know what I mean? Like, what is your guys' take, each of you, on the question of like, should we ever dare to attempt remaking like classic originals? Or should we just not bother touching the sacred totem?
Yes.
I don't think there's like a right or wrong answer. I'm just curious because that is such a divisive debate among folks.
Yeah.
So you said yes to which? That we shouldn't or that we
Or
could?
that we, without nuance, the question of should we or could we, my answer is yes to both. With film, with any kind of media, with anything, I mean, not to say like there's no original thought, but there's always something that takes us back to the roots that makes it modern. That like anything that's created now has relation to then. When going for a one-for-one remake in that sense, I feel it is possible to have something exist. Obviously, it can't be a one-for-one because of the specific, era that this movie came in. For 1973, the Vietnam War, very specific. Like it's not like this movie's taking place at this time. No, this movie was filmed and like exists
it's charged by that. Yeah,
exactly. So I still think it's possible, and when we talked about our sequel, requel, prequels, it doesn't have to be a one-for-one for it to be a remake, because the point of a remake for me is that it's made for the times that it is coming out in.
Yeah.
And as long as it abides by those things, not to say it has to have this like super strict list of things, but like for certain movies, like Texas Chainsaw, like the conversation of ableism, like the conversation of the Harbinger, like there's so many things that are like
whether
specific.
or not it was intended or not when they did it, it's
It
like
was-
the nuance of it, the way that it exists within the being. Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
an unspoken rule to every movie in regards to a remake or what you would need to do to honor it while still being able to have the creative integrity of your own piece for it to actually exist. And I think it's possible, but unfortunately with this, what we've discussed,
They just kind of
till
missed the
the
mark.
cows come home, they just want to make money.
So the cows come home.
No, so not against. Do
No.
you have what would you?
I'm in full agreement of what Claudio said. Like, I feel like there's so many times in the history of filmmaking that a classic film has been remade and done well, or if not better.
Let's say, do you guys remember the Psycho remake with
Oh.
Vince Vaughn and
How could you forget?
who's Portia de Rossi's wife? And she dated Ellen DeGeneres for a minute.
Oh, I can't remember.
Anne Heche.
Anne Heche, yeah.
Vince Vaughn and Anne Heche remade with a pretty great director that we love, who directed Good Will Hunting and
Gus Van Sant.
Elephant. Gus Van Sant.
Yeah.
Great director. So he did with Vince Vaughn in the Perkins role, Anthony Perkins, and Anne Heche in the Marilyn
Crane.
Chambers. Well, right.
It's funny.
Shot for shot remake. It was essentially just a colorized version of Psycho, and everyone hated it.
Yeah.
Because it was a shot for shot, like frame for frame, line for line, like nothing different remake. And after that, I feel like folks were like, "Oh no! If you're gonna remake something, let's put a spin on it."
You have to expand a little bit.
At least
but
a
it's
little.
like
Has
there's
to exist in the
Justify
Yeah.
itself. So a friend
Which-
of mine and I would always sort of relate this debate question to cover songs. Right. So if you're gonna cover a song,
why.
exactly, there should be maybe a little bit of a reason, but at the same time,
You're
you
either
want it
gonna-
to be
you're either gonna-
recognizable as a cover.
pay one-to-one homage to it where it's an old enough song that it's like, oh, this is recontextualized for being a now time song and everybody loves it, or you redo it entirely and you do it like you.
And again,
And
I'm,
let
I'm,
that
I'm with
be
you
the
guys.
piece itself.
I'm with you guys. I agree that like I don't think we should never
Like-
not attempt to remake a classic because it's too holy to like.
Yeah.
So many folks are like, oh, you're gonna ruin the original. No, we're not.
Well, it's
No,
like-
it
it's
still
still gonna be
exists.
there.
Look
It's
back,
still gonna be there.
looking back at like some of the best horror movies of all time. A handful of them were fucking remakes from original classic movies that were loved, like The Fly, The Thing, fucking Cape Fear, Dawn of the Dead, The Mummy. Like these all started from somewhere and became something else. Too, it's like okay, you got Dracula to Dracula. Like, come on, man.
But even not the one-to-one remakes. Like everything is just a remake of what came before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like with a slightly different spin. So
Yeah.
like I'm not against those things. However,
Saying that like it's a hard pass, you're not allowed to do that. It's
Yeah.
like I think that is very close-minded, and
It
I
has
feel
to
like
be
it's very
treaded
limiting.
with love and care for the original piece.
so again, I'm with you guys. It just has to be done thoughtfully.
It's-
I was just gonna say I'm glad
be
to
missing
hear,
soul.
I'm glad to hear us all agree on that because, and I think you might already know this, but do we all know who's gonna do the next Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Don't
No.
look.
Wait,
don't look,
wait,
don't look.
wait! Yes, I do. We talked about this before.
I think we have. It's someone that we know and like.
Can I get the initials of their name?
JTM. JT is his first name.
Oh.
Initials, I guess.
Oh,
So, who did Strange Darling? JT Molnar. He is slated to do the next untitled Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Okay,
film.
so in my head, right, opening shots of Strange Darling where it's like that faux Super 8 type shit with the weird color grading and the freeze frames
And the cool
with the names.
sound design stuff.
Yeah, that's it, man.
Don't you think he's well suited for this? I
So,
think he's going to do
and
great.
that also brings me back around too to the one thing that it's like I really didn't get to touch on this too much, but it's like I'll go quick on it. The thing about the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so much of that was like it was an indie semi-guerrilla thing because it's like they were kind of just shooting on the side of the road and stuff. Nobody really knew what they were doing. They were all just going on vibes. But fuck, if that wasn't some of the coolest cinematography that you've ever seen. Like when they're walking up to the house and the camera is panning up on the house and the camera goes under the fucking swing and pulls in really low, having the house hang over top of Sally as she's walking up to the house. Fucking awesome. He wasn't fucking trained for that type of shit. He was just like, you know what would look fucking cool? That. And it's like, that is so fucking cool to me that is something that, like, I think that's what pissed me off the most about the remake, doing like, oh, we got that really hot camera shot through the head right at the beginning. It's gonna be cool as hell. They didn't fucking do it for the rest of the movie. It was shot like every other goddamn action movie you've ever seen. I'm like, that's why someone like JT Mulner I can see doing something cool with this because, like, go with the vibes.
Well, and
Live with it. Love it. Be a part of it.
I also like, though, that, like, of course we'll never stop trying to remake, you know, this franchise or whatever, because even though we wanted to concentrate mostly on the original and just the 03 remake, obviously we've touched on the other sequels. We're about to wrap up, but aside from these 6 movies that we've kind of focused on, the original 2, 3, the weird 95 remake, and then the 06 and 03 remakes, the one that we did mention starring Alexandra Daddario is the Texas Chainsaw 3D, which was made in 2013 that nobody
Because
likes.
clearly that had to have a 3D remake.
4 years later, in 2017, an otherwise great movie year, we got something called Leatherface that nobody liked.
That was pretty cool.
And then about 5 years after
Ish.
that, in 2022, Netflix went ahead and made a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that nobody appreciated. It somehow involved
No, that was 3D.
social media
Wait, that was
influencers.
3D?
3D was Do Your Thing, cuz.
Oh no, was 2022 the one where they're on the bus?
2022 gave us that great.
Oh!
That was the only thing about that movie that. Well, no, okay. There was 2 scenes. There was that, and then there was the cop scene when he cuts the fucking cop's face off. But the scene when he just goes charging through a bus packed full of people with a fucking chainsaw, I'm like, that is visceral.
There was. And
So
then I
regardless of
remember-
like the details, I was just
Yeah.
trying to say that even after like the bad 03 remake that we knew should have been like the final nail in the
That they're
coffin
still
until
gonna
a good
keep
one,
doing it.
they did 4 more. All right, across 10 years or more, I guess more than 10 years, but still, like.
yeah, it's never gonna.
So my
stop.
point being that yeah, the remakes are never going to stop. However, I'm glad that it seems as though we have, you know, gotten from the nadir to maybe an upswing with JT Molnar, who again directed Strange Darling, which we loved. So we're, you know, being optimistic about the future. But yeah, I think that does take us now to, you know, we're all caught up on Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
For better or worse?
For better
For
or
better,
worse?
for better. Because, hey, but truly, like, I had avoided all of these movies for so long, and now, like, I finally got to see the original. And the original is amazing. And now, because I've witnessed the original and truly understand how awesome it is, I can fully appreciate not only the glimpses of cool, fun stuff in the weird sequels, but also how terrible they are. And also, hopefully, how great they'll be again now, maybe with the new one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, it's worth it just because we got to see paper mache.
You got to see paper face mask. That
Paper
I made in
face.
Paper
minutes.
face
Paper face! Well, that's gonna do it for Paper Face.
I'm screaming.
Good evening, all. And that was the wrong thing. Oh, God. That'll be it.
So hope you have a good evening.
Yeah. All right. Have a great evening. That'll be it from us at the podcast downstairs. You can hack us up wherever you find your podcasts. You can also find us on the YouTubes, Instagram, TikTok, and possibly the Butcher Floor. Be sure to comment, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Maybe throw a hammer at my head. I want to thank our producer and tech wizard, Don, and Not Great Entertainment for giving us this beautiful slaughterhouse and having all of this set up and helping us with the pod. We will see you later, and until then, stay out of the slaughterhouse. I mean basement. Stay out of the basement.